Now we'll create eye controls. Let's head over to our layer manager and make sure our character's unfrozen. If we select the eyes, you can see how they're kind of slanted. So setting them up is actually going to be a little challenging, but yet at the same time very beneficial, because we want them to keep this pose but at the same time point right at our control. We don't want them to shift as we do a look at constraint, connecting them to that control. So we're going to discuss something, again, very significant when it comes to setting up eyes this way, a technique I like to use. But first things first, let's go ahead and set up the controls. So we'll go ahead and create a circle shape. From there we can move over to the back view, turn on snap to grid. Okay, we should have the same settings still. Just go ahead and snap out a circle right at our grid point and right click. From there we can go to the modify panel and turn off enable in viewport for rendering. Okay, so this will leave its original shape. What we'll also do is go ahead and create a crosshair. What we're basically doing is creating a target, which I think would be suitable for an eye control. So we'll head over back to the create panel and create a line shape, again snapping to grid. Alright, so now that we have the shape, can come out of the snap tool, maybe select the circle, increase its size just a little bit more, and then from there we can convert it to an editable spline and go ahead and connect the crosshair that we made to it. So choose attach, and now they're one shape. Alright, so now we can head over back to our perspective. What we'll first do, I'll go ahead and turn off attach. What we'll first do is align this to the center of our eyeball so that when we do our look at constraint, again it will point straight ahead. It will point to this control without having any shift. So with the object selected, it will press Shift A and select the left eye. From here what I'd like to do is go ahead and kind of scale this down just a little bit more. So it's not so large, and then we'll want to take this, clone it, and bring it to the right eye. So again we'll press Control V, choose copy, Shift A, choose the right eyeball. Now from here what we can do is head over to our layer manager, hide our character, select these two shapes, and go ahead and bring those out. I can bring back the visibility of our character. Go ahead and close out the layer manager, and we don't want to bring them out too far, but not too close. See, about here would be just fine. What I'd like to do is actually go back to scale, switch that back to local, and maybe scale these down just a little bit more. Okay, great. So of course we can recolor them from here and then work on renaming them. So for the left side we've been using blue, and then for the right side can color that green. Okay, so we have our initial control set up. Let's go ahead and name them. The left side, that's going to be cc underscore l underscore I01. Go ahead and copy that, paste, and change the L to an R. Alright, so we have our secondary control set up for the eyes. Let's say we go ahead now and lock their rotation and also scale, because we don't need to worry about that. Now before we actually do that, we'll go ahead and set up our parent control that's going to control both of these. So we'll do that locking at the as the last step to finish up, which would be a better workflow. Alright, so we'll go back to the create panel, and I'd like to just use the text tool again. And here we'll change max text to X. So just draw it an X shape. We'll scale it down initially. We'll definitely want to center its pivot first. So we'll head over to our hierarchy panel, center the pivot, and scale this down. Okay, now we'll want it centered between both of these control objects that we've made. So to do that, we can use position constraints. With the X still selected, we'll position constrain it to the left control and then to the right control. Now it's centered, so now we can go ahead and freeze its transforms. Alright, so from here we can go back to the hierarchy panel, choose Effect Object Only, and go ahead and rotate this shape. And I'll turn on Angle Snap for that, or make sure it's still turned on. Just rotate this upward. Alright, so there we have it. So coming out of that, we can scale this down. And give this a name. This is going to be CC underscore eyes 01. Let's head over to the Modify panel and turn on rendering for this one. Might bring up its size just a little bit more. I'd say to about 2. Okay, and then we can also recolor it. You can always go with the yellow we've been using. Alright, now that this control is established, we can work on linking. So we can take our secondary controls and link them to this main control. So as we move that main control, both eyes will follow. Alright, now that that's done, we can go ahead and select both of these secondary controls and freeze their transforms. We'll want to take this primary control and link that not to the head, because mainly what we'll want is targeting, and if we have this link to the head, we'll have to counter key the eyes targeting. So if we want them to move naturally, I find a better workflow is to just leave them parented to the world. But in this case, we'll want them right at the global control. So I'll go to the link tool, link, and now we can freeze transformations on this parent control. Head over to the curve editor and start to lock the attributes or the controllers that we don't need to worry about. So for this one, I actually like to keep the rotation Y and also rotation Z, because that creates a type of googly eye effect. But the X we can get rid of. Alright, and we want to make sure we're under gimbal mode when we see this, so we know the actual axis that we'd like to remove. So again, for this primary eye control, I'll just head over to its rotation X and also the scale, right click and lock. For the others, we'll go ahead and lock the rotation and scale. So again, do the same for this right eye control. Close out the curve editor. And then for our last task here, let's say we go ahead and add them to layers, and then by the next lesson we will finish rigging the eyes. Okay, so we could just select the X, control page down, choose our control objects layer, choose add. Alright, there we have it. So we have our controls established, and again in the next lesson we'll finish rigging the eyes.